Guys, Shadow the Rat, and for today's video I wanted to do a video on my experience with Tofu here because as some of you might know, Tofu is my first hairless rat after nearly 10 years of having rats. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about some of the differences and similarities I found with her, especially because hairless rats are one of those varieties that are kind of debated in the rat community. Some people are for them, some people are against them, some people are pretty neutral towards them, and I'm typically pretty neutral towards them, so I thought I would just talk about what it's been like to have Tofu here. So I've had Tofu for a little over a year and a half, and she is a little over a year and 8 months. Well, actually she's closer to a year and 9 months now, but as you can see, she's doing quite well. She has not had any health issues, which is one of the big things that you see people ask about hairless rats. Because depending on the line, some hairless can be prone to entropion, which is basically when their eyelashes grow inwards, and that can cause eye ulcers, which are not only extremely painful for the rat, but they also need to be fixed with surgery, or in most cases the eye actually has to be removed. So it's definitely a serious health issue, and that health issue is one of the big reasons you'll see people say that hairless are unethical to breed. But the thing is that it is not inherently linked to hairlessness. That is to say that you can have rats like Tofu, which is recessive hairless, and their entire line can be completely fine eye-wise. In fact, any good breeder will be selecting only for rats that show good eyes without any entropion or eye issues at all, which is what Tofu is. She has not had any eye issues at all, and her eyes have been just completely healthy her whole life. Similarly, some hairless rats can have skin issues, which typically encompass things like abscesses and cysts, sometimes ingrown hairs if they are the type of hairless to grow some fur, because there are actually a range of expressions in recessive hairless. You can find anything from hairless that are slightly fuzzy to hairless that are pretty much completely nude, like Tofu. Raisin here is not a hairless. She is mostly hairless, but she's actually a werewolf. Raisin's variety is prone to a lot of the same issues as Tofu's variety, but they are different varieties, and I specifically wanted to talk about Tofu's variety, but again, Raisin is kind of just subbing in for Tofu while Tofu explores. Anyways, like I was saying, skin issues can be an issue with some hairless lines. However, again, this is something that you can sort of select away from. I say sorta because hairless rats, of course, are more prone to scratches because they don't have fur covering their, skin. But that being said, not all hairless are going to be as prone to things like abscesses as others. And again, just talking about Tofu in particular, I have never seen any abscesses, cysts, or any skin issues at all with her. In fact, she even doesn't get scratches really. The only time I've seen scratches is during intros. Otherwise, she is always completely smooth. And even when she does get scratches, she heals very quickly, which is just a rat trait. Now, the third and final health issue you'll hear people talk about when it comes to hairless is just having a weaker immune system. And this is a bit of a myth because there are actually a lot of different genetics out there that can cause hairlessness in rats. You've already seen, Raisin right here with her werewolfness looking kind of hairless, and of course Tofu is a recessive hairless. But there's quite a few other genetics out there that can also cause hairlessness, and not all of them are equal when it comes to immune systems and health issues. Now, the ones you find in the pet world are typically going to be recessive hairless, werewolf, and double rex, and none of these have any inherent immune issues. That is to say, they do not have a weakened immune system. They have a thymus gland, and they should not be any more prone to any sort of health issues than any other rat. Now, on the other hand, there are a few varieties of hairless that are bred only in labs that literally don't have a thymus gland, and their immune system is just completely non-functional. And as a result, outside of a sterile environment, these rats typically only live a few weeks to a few months. So these are what people usually think of when they think of hairless having immune issues. However, you don't find these hairless in the pet world. Like, you just can't find them outside of labs. So there is no chance of you getting a hairless rat and them having a weakened or just no immune system at all. That's just not possible because, again, these varieties are not found in the pet world. So that's a little bit of a confusing myth that's kind of just popped up and been integrated into the rat community. It gives hairless a bit of a bad name. And specifically talking about Tofu, she has not had any health issues at all, and she's just doing really well. And again, I've had her for quite a while, so I'm quite happy with how she's doing. And same goes for Raisin. Okay, so those are the 3 health issues you usually hear talked about with Hairless. And as far as the other things you hear talked about with them, one is a lower lifespan. It's just related to the myth about them having no immune system or a weakened immune system, which again is not an issue with pet rats. Now, moving on from that, the next thing I wanted to talk about was care requirements. So oftentimes when you see people asking about hairless rats, you'll see other people giving them this whole list of care requirements, like having to oil them daily, not being able to house them on bedding, needing to keep the temperature where they are warmer, just a bunch of things that makes it seem like it's harder to care for them than it is. And I'm here to tell you that none of these things are true. Hairless don't require any extra care than furred rats. And in fact, some of these kind of extra care requirements, as you might call them, are actually detrimental to hairless rats. And specifically, I'm referring to people telling you that you should oil them, because this used to be a very common care tip for hairless. However, we now know that it's not a good idea to oil them because oil actually tends to clog the skin pores, which makes it more likely for the hairless rat to develop abscesses, cysts, or any sort of skin infection. So it's actually not a good idea to moisturize your hairless in this way. In fact, if they have dry skin, the best thing to do is just feed them some fatty foods like some black oil sunflower seeds and to increase the humidity in your room a bit by using a humidifier. Similarly, when it comes to temperature, hairless rats don't need an excessively warm temperature or anything like that. They do just fine at normal room temperature, and as long as you have some bedding in the cage for them to burrow with and nest with, they will be able to build themselves a little nest if they do feel cold. And the same goes for hairless rats. And that brings me to bedding, which is completely fine for hairless rats to have, and in fact, it's recommended by most breeders because it's just the easiest way to keep things clean and to prevent things like ammonia from building up from their urine. The main reason I see people cite for bedding not being a good idea with hairless rats is it scratching their skin or getting into their eyes, which again is really not a big issue in my experience. Tofu here has not had issues with that. I do check Tofu's eyes daily alongside Raisin's, but I've never found any issues with them, and I just do that as a precautionary thing because, well, the varieties are, like I said before, sometimes known for eye issues, but I haven't seen that with my own hairless. As far as the scratching goes, I'm not even sure how bedding would scratch them. Like, that's some really pointy bedding if that's happening. Really, I haven't found any big differences between having a hairless and having other furred rats. So yeah, I guess this video has kind of turned into a video specifically talking about some of the care requirements and myths about hairless rats, but I did try to sprinkle in some tidbits about Tofu in particular. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of talk about this some because I know that people's opinion on hairless rats and also werewolves like Raisin are kind of mixed, and for a good reason, because there are definitely unethical breeders working with them who prioritize the looks over actually selecting for health, and I do feel like these are varieties where you do have to select for health, specifically because there are lines where entropion is extremely common, and that's just such an awful condition. I will say that at least my initial experience with these sorts of varieties has been very positive, and I do plan to have more in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much been my experience with my first hairless rat and with Raisin, my first werewolf as well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing Tofu briefly and then Raisin for most of the video. I would be interested in hearing your own experience with hairless and werewolf below as well. Yeah, so I will see you guys next time, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye!